Welcome to this session on learner-centered teaching. My name is Dot Garman and I will facilitate this discussion. We will look at why learner-centered teaching promotes greater understanding and long-term memory retention and how technology can be used to enhance these instructional strategies. There are two main objectives for this session. First, we will focus on the most recent research about learning. We'll take that information and correlate it to learner-centered teaching methods. We will also identify various technologies that can be used to enhance learner-centered classrooms. The central theme of learner-centered teaching is that the person who does the work also does the learning. In the book written by Terry Doyle, titled Learner-Centered Teaching: Putting the Research of Learning into Practice, he tells us that learner-centered teaching is creating an environment that is centered on the learner and the learning. It means that the student is the one doing the work. The student is the one actively engaged. The student is creating, crafting, building, and learning how to learn. In this session, we will look at specific research about learning and identify technology-rich strategies to create a learner-centered classroom. In Doyle's book, he highlights studies that show the brain actually grows new cells and network connections when engaged in learning. However, the studies continue to mention that for the new connections to be permanent, the information and skills need to be used and practiced over periods of time. If not used, the new cells and connections will be reabsorbed into the brain. So let's think about how this transfers to teaching. If we want our students to understand and remember the content we teach, we must get them actively engaged with the information. Finding ways for students to repeat and elaborate on new learning is a crucial feature of a learner-centered classroom. One method of repetition is to practice skills over time as opposed to cramming before exams. Research identified in Doyle's book shows that cramming is ineffective. To maintain information in long-term memory, students must use frequent, spaced-out study sessions. Let's take a look at a few strategies that use technology to help students review material and prepare for tests. Technology is a great tool for practicing new skills in a repetitive fashion. As Terry Doyle explains in his book, computer-based practice quizzes can be taken over and over again. They also provide immediate feedback so students can see where they may have gaps in their learning prior to the exam. One example of a technology-based practice tool is a website called Quizlet. The teacher enters the content and the website provides a variety of formats for studying. There are flashcards, multiple choice questions, and even game formats. The basis of the research in Doyle's book is to practice frequently, and this is just one of the many technologies that can help provide a means to that end. Memories can be enhanced through the use of elaboration strategies such as reflection. This is another learning strategy outlined in Doyle's book. Reflection is a powerful learning strategy that is a type of encoding. Using reflection will help students make connections between concepts and to clarify their understanding. Reflection also helps students make the link between prior and current learning, as well as strengthens the connection pathways in the brain. Technology can be an aid in helping students reflect on their own learning. Most learning management systems like Moodle have a journal activity that can be viewed only by the individual student and teacher. Other options might be to use Google Docs or Google Classroom to create a journal-type activity. Other options include a shared online environment like a wiki, where students can share their learning experiences with others. Doyle's book continues by identifying additional research that shows that reward pathways in the brain are stimulated when activities are relevant and meaningful to the student's life. It is obvious to most educators that students put forth more effort when they know others will see the end result of their work or when the lesson applies to their personal lives. Not only does new learning need to be relevant, but it must also contain a component of rigor. Activities that are not challenging may actually have a negative effect. Teachers must embrace authentic learning to maintain a high level of interest and motivation in students, which will in turn increase memory retention of the content. There are many ways that technology can be used to incorporate authentic learning. In the book Learner-Centered Teaching, written by Terry Doyle, he says that students have a favorable reaction to authentic learning tasks. The reward pathways in the brain are stimulated when activities are real and meaningful to them. Some examples I've seen and read about include English classes that created newsletters about local community members that faced adversity, art students that created augmented reality yearbooks, social studies classes that created documentaries, also termed video research, on a current topic, science classes that took field trips to local watersheds where students used science data logging devices to capture real research information, and technology students that used their programming skills to create animations and games for younger children in the school district. The possibilities are endless on ways that you can incorporate authentic learning in your classroom. Recent research that Doyle recognizes in his book shows that learning using more than one sense has a better chance of memory retention. Using this new research about multisensory learning, teachers can plan more effective teaching strategies to help students not just learn, but retain, recall, and use new information. Studies in the area of memory retention noted in Doyle's book shows that students learn better when new information is presented using both words and pictures. It is important that the image strongly correlates to the text, and the text should be kept as brief as possible so as not to create cognitive overload for the students. Less is often more during a multimedia presentation. Not only should teachers keep this in mind for their own slideshows, but should teach students how to create presentations using this same concept. Let's keep talking about this research that Terry Doyle addresses in his book. Additional studies in this area have shown that students learn up to 50% more when resources such as animations have an auditory soundtrack as opposed to captions. Trying to watch an animation and read at the same time will cause a sensory overload, as both are visual elements. In contrast, the animation with audio narration uses two different senses, visual and auditory, increasing the opportunity for memory retention. Moving on, there are studies that reveal that patterns and making connections are key ingredients for brain development. These issues are highlighted in Doyle's book, Learner-Centered Teaching. Making connections and creating patterns about content is an important factor in learning. Students need to see the relationship among information to make meaning of it. Students may need help connecting the dots. There are many ways to assist students in seeing these connections. Students may need help putting the puzzle pieces together. There are many ways to assist students in seeing these connections. One popular example that Doyle explains is to have students restate information in their own words, a process called recoding. We all have our own way of stating things, our own pattern, so to speak. When students reprocess information into their own words, it will help them make a meaningful connection with the information, and a greater likelihood it will be remembered. Technology can come into play in many ways, from as basic as typing information to as involved as videotaping a reenactment. A classic method of using patterning as an instructional strategy is to have students create diagrams or charts using similarities and differences. Comparing and contrasting data will guide students into sorting, classifying, and realizing how items are connected. Concept mapping software is excellent for showing Venn diagrams, grouping and sorting, and a variety of other strategies. One of the most interesting ideas brought out in Doyle's book is the next concept we will discuss. Exercise gets the brain moving along with other muscles of the body, which prepares the cells in the brain for new information. Recent studies show how exercise is a vital ingredient to create new neurons in the brain. In technical terms, exercise stirs up protein in the brain cells called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. The increased movement during exercise increases the BDNF. The increased levels of BDNF provide the best opportunity for new learning to take place. Technology games can be used to both teach and increase physical activity during learning. Some examples of how to do this are outlined in an article on the Edutopia website called We Love Learning. This article explains how teachers in Cumberland Elementary School in West Lafayette, Indiana, uses the Wii for fun activities that include educational elements. Have you ever considered using the Wii to have students learn math while bowling? Or practice recording, charting, and statistics while playing a game of Wii baseball? The Wii and other active gaming systems can be used as both a learning experience as well as a way of getting kids up and moving at this particular elementary school. So in summary, throughout this session, we have looked at some of the research about how the brain learns and related it to a learner-centered classroom. We also identified a variety of technologies that can enhance learner-centered teaching. There's more research on how the brain learns and how it applies to a learner-centered classroom, along with many ways that technology can be used in its implementation. Hopefully this session has given you a good starting point for strategies of a learner-centered, technology-enhanced classroom. The next slide will list the resources used in this presentation if you are interested in continuing your investigation about learner-centered teaching enhanced with technology.